Hello and welcome to Big Deal. I'm Nisha Poddar. Wish you all a very happy Diwali. And on this occasion, while wealth creation and prosperity is on top of our minds, let's focus on one aspect that really plays a very crucial role in investments, starting businesses, and also striking any type of transactions. It's the all-pervasive tax angle, often given less credit, but can completely change the game. Tax efficiency is the key and clarity is paramount. So let me welcome on Big Deal two important tax experts to talk about it. But first joining me is Dinesh Kanabar. Dinesh, always a pleasure to welcome you on CNBC-TV18.
Thank you for having me here.
And wish you and your family and Dhruva advisors a very happy Diwali.
Thank you, and same to you.
Thank you so much. So first, talking about this year, there are many events which have really taken place, which probably increases the tax uncertainty and the trust deficit when we talk about the tax policies by the government and investors and companies at large. So give me a sense of where we stand at Diwali and how is the way looking forward.
You know, Nisha, we are speaking at a time of Diwali, so let me not begin with a trust deficit and things going wrong. But let me put a factor which I think has become very, very critical, and which is that the numbers in the tax have become so huge that they can actually derail a company, derail an entire business.
Yes.
Just to give you a sort of a point, let's look at the entire gaming industry issue, where tens of thousands of crores of rupees of demand have been raised, including on a company where the market capitalization has come down by 30–40%. So in a sense, we are dealing with, there is a very recent judgment in the case of Cognizant. Again, we are talking of 10,000 crores of rupees. So like, there was a point of time, and I remember this, and I won't go into names, I fought a litigation for one of the largest business houses. And at stake was 850 crores, and that was the biggest tax case in history.
Yes.
Today, it would not even feature in the top 250.
Yes.
So the numbers have become very large, and the numbers have an ability to derail everything that an organization is doing and require it to focus on nothing but taxes. That, I think, is a very interesting change.
No, definitely. And also I wanted to understand, see, we've gone through a lot. We've had the age of GAR, Vodafone case, and now that MNCs are focusing on India so much, we are also inviting, foreign inflows. In fact, a lot of our growth trajectory is based on the foreign money coming in, and foreign investors are very keen on us. Where have we reached in terms of the tax policy when viewed from the outside world?
I think it's a very important question, and Nisha, there is an increased focus on India, whether it is because of China +1, whatever else it is. And there is a revival of the sentiment for investment in India.
Yes.
And the point really which we need to focus on is that as we speak of ease of doing business, there was a point of time, as you will know, Nisha, that there used to be this ranking, a World Bank ranking, which got criticized, and I'm not on whether that was right or wrong, but we featured pretty low out there, and we had improved our standing, but we were still low. And if one went into the details of why we were low, probably tax featured at the top of that whole thing. And the question which we need to think is that whether over this period of time, and when there is this revival of sentiment, is tax going to act as a dampener or tax is going to act as an enabler?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I must say that from a policy perspective, a lot has happened which is positive.
Yes.
We have got a lower rate of tax, as low as 15% for new manufacturing companies, which of course is coming to an end by the date by which you have to commence manufacture. A 25% rate of tax, 35% with or without the incentives, is again something which is quite good, attractive. The question is, how is the law implemented? How is the tax office viewing the taxpayers? And to the word which you began this conversation with, is there still a trust deficit, or is that gap being bridged? And I must say that there's a lot more work which is required to be done there.
That's right. And on that note, let me also introduce to this discussion Mukesh Butani. Mukesh, always a pleasure to welcome you on CNBC-TV18. Wish you a very happy Diwali.
Thank you. Same to you. Same to you, Dinesh.
Same to you.
So Dinesh and I were discussing about whether India's tax policy is going to be a dampener for the foreign investors and the companies to grow, or is it going to be a booster? Where are we at this point?
See, I think Dinesh pointed out the elephant in the room, a sheer divide between what the policymakers want and how it actually gets administered. So that's really an area of focus for many, many years. And the stance of all the expert committees, including commissions, has been not on whether there should be incentive, geographic or industries, but how do you really improve the administrative process?
Yes.
So I think that, high-pitched assessments have again arrived back as order of the day. Plethora of appeals, in the courts that are lying are just indicative of the number of disputes that are occurring. I think there is a serious rethink that needs to be done. That if all your editions are not able to pass the muster of the higher appellate forums, then whether you should seriously look at deeper administrative reforms to address it. So I think there is, I won't say lack of commitment. The commitment is there, but I think there's probably, slackness in implementation.
Yes.
I don't think we need any more sermons or advice on what we should do. Neither do we need to go shopping across the world to find out what are the best practices. I think we need to really look at ourselves, like we say, look into the mirror.
That's right. So tax execution as well as commitment to executing the clarity and simplicity is one of the aspects.
Just one comment, before you go further. To the point which Mukesh made, first of all, the first appellate level, which is Commissioner Appeals, has actually been choked. There are matters which are pending for 5, 6, 7 years. Now, how do you have a situation where you come back and say that I'm going to have, as Mukesh said, a high-pitch assessment? I require you to pay 20% of the demand before you go into appeal. And then you say that appeal will be heard after whatever point of time. And I think that again is one of the very important bottlenecks which is sitting out there staring at us.
That's right. And talking about some of the events, and I would just appreciate that there have been efforts made, like the whole REIT InvIT structure has really come up in a big way and become a very big capital intensive sector, fueling space, really speaking, only because of the tax efficiency. But I also know that professionals have worked tirelessly for 10, 12 years with the government to really change it and make it tax efficient. So that's how long it has been taking, but we can only be positive. But one important, event that really has come up, Supreme Court's judgment on telecom license fees. The big debate between it is a capital expenditure versus a revenue expenditure, and the verdict has been on the capital expenditure. What's your view on that? How is the industry taking it?
So one is, of course, there is already gossip going around in informed circles that the telco industry is going to ask for a review of the judgment. And I wish that the judgment was in a very narrow focus. So there was one aspect of the judgment which did not make equity, but at least made legal sense, which was to say that the amounts paid under the new telecom policy were effectively a substitution for what was under the old telecom policy. And if what was paid under the old policy was capital, new too should be in capital in nature. One could understand that, or not agree with it, but at least one could have understood that. But the all sweeping comments that have been made by the Supreme Court, this is an age-old dispute, Nisha. This is not something new. And there are plethora of judgments, all of which were viewed by the High Court. And now suddenly to come back and review all of it and to say that if there is something which has been paid to establish, operate and maintain a network, then I will disregard what is to operate and maintain. And I will treat everything as establishment and therefore capital. Those sweeping remarks, the remarks to go back and say that if you could not have started something without a license, if the license is cancelled, then you cannot carry on the business. Therefore, that makes it capital, opens up the Pandora's box to what happens on production sharing contracts, what happens on commercial contracts, the BCCI rights, and there are mines, royalties, etc. And the question is, where do all of these go to? Will we again have to go back to say some of these are depreciable assets? If so, at what rate? So we are opening up something which was a sort of a sleeping giant, and the remarks are very, very all-pervasive and prone to litigation.
So very important point raised here, and Mukesh, you just rushed back from the courts. Let's give it the legal twist on what the Supreme Court has said. As Dinesh Kanabar said, that establish, maintain, operate. But the Supreme Court has clearly stated in its judgment that they are not indivisible terms. They are conjoined together. So you cannot have a portion as capital and a portion as revenue. How does a legal eagle really look at this?
I don't want to use any further jargons more than what you have used. I don't think it requires a jurist's mind to interpret these terms. It requires an accounting principle, own operate. I wonder why these matters actually go to the Supreme Court in the first place. And this is where the administrative lacuna is. That if a matter has been decided by a tribunal,
Yes.
you should give a serious thought before you go to the High Court. And if your matter has been decided by the High Court, you should give a very, very serious thought to go to the Supreme Court. I think that is where we are lacking.
Yes.
Now, unfortunately, the challenge is that these decisions get taken mechanically. If the stakes involved for the Union of India is very high, you have to go for the appeal. If you don't go for the appeal, some civil servant may get hauled up under the Prevention of Corruption Act. So I think, again, you need deeper administrative reforms. I still recall when I entered the profession, and I was not a lawyer at that point in time, even for the department to appeal against a commissioner appeals order, the first appellate forum, you actually had to have someone give a technical opinion. If you want to go to the High Court, you need to actually have a standing counsel opine on every case, why this is a case fit enough to go to the High Court. In fact, the law in those days was that the tribunal first has to clear it by saying this is a fit enough case for it to be appealed in the High Court. Today now, every case, there is a special leave petition in the Supreme Court for everything. Now, this is not a commercial dispute where interests of two parties are involved or one goes against the other. I think this is a dispute between the Union of India and the taxpayer, and the point that Dinesh was making on taxpayer certainty a while ago is very critical. So until and unless you do a technical analysis, I mean, with no disrespect, there are many, many issues in the Supreme Court decision on whether something is capital or revenue. Again, it goes back to the core principles of accounting.
Yeah.
What is capital?
The fundamentals of
Correct.
the business.
And you do not need
Yes.
Supreme Court to interpret that, where 8 out of 10 judges are looking after constitutional matters.
Right. So he mentioned that it opens a Pandoras box. Like there are many such, licenses given in other sectors which are of this nature.
And
so are we already in a confusion state?
We are already, because even if it is not, and even if you can distinguish, as Mukesh is saying, the administration is going to throw this judgment in every single case, and then you are going to litigate. And we'll have to find ways and means to distinguish as to why the observations made by Supreme Court in Telco's case does not apply to me.
Correct.
Right.
But I think when these matters are decided, the courts are unable to appreciate that the ratios of these judgments, what kind of impact it would have on other industries.
That's one thing that needs to be brought about very clearly. And so we probably could see more litigation and a review that is expected on this burning topic in the telecom sector. But there are lots more events that have really taken place. We'll delve deeper into that on Big Deal right here, right after a very short break. Stay tuned.